Sometimes I wonder, at what point did we stop living and start merely surviving the demands of others? There's a silent trap that sneaks into life after 60, the idea that you don't matter as much anymore, that your duty is to give, to yield, to hand over, even if it leaves you empty. And the cruelest part is that this pressure often doesn't come from strangers, but from the very people you love most. Children, a partner, siblings, grandchildren. They convince you that if you keep something for yourself, you're selfish. But if you give it all away, you end up feeling invisible, drained, and used. Has that ever happened to you? My name is Gabriel, and for more than 15 years I've studied and practiced Stoicism as a philosophy of life. I've walked alongside hundreds of older people who have shared with me their greatest fear: becoming a burden to others, losing their dignity, or giving up their peace just to please. That confession left a mark on me, because I realized that the real danger isn't old age. It's handing over the most valuable parts of yourself in exchange for crumbs of approval. And I don't say this from theory, but from what I've seen, lived, and learned. Every time someone gives themselves up in the name of love, they're really betraying themselves. Today, I want to walk with you through an uncomfortable yet liberating path. We're going to look together at the 12 things you must never, under any circumstance, give up for anyone. Not for your children, not for your partner, not for your siblings, not for your friends. Because by protecting them, far from hurting others, you're actually doing them a favor. You're teaching by example that peace, dignity, and self-respect are untouchable. And when you take care of yourself, they learn to take care of themselves too. Let's begin. Number 1. Your no is sacred. Saying no can feel like carrying a heavy weight, almost as if by refusing you were letting someone down. But think about it with me. What does that no really mean? It isn't rejection, it isn't lack of love, it isn't indifference. That no is an act of honesty and respect, both toward yourself and toward the other person. The strange thing is, many of us were raised to believe that saying yes makes us good, and saying no makes us selfish. And over the years, that belief turns into an invisible prison. After 60, every poorly given yes translates into energy that never comes back, into stolen hours of rest, into money that won't return, into health that starts to crack. I remember a time when someone close to me constantly asked for favors that had become more demands than requests. They asked with that mix of sweetness and guilt-tripping that appeals to, "How could you say no? I'm family." At first, I gave in, because the silence of a yes seemed easier than the noise of a no, until I realized that every time I agreed to something I didn't want to do, a piece of my peace was breaking. That's when I tried answering with a short, clear no, without excuses or decoration. The result was an uncomfortable silence, yes, but also the birth of a new respect. Psychology explains something fascinating. When you always say yes, the other person learns to demand more. It's called positive reinforcement. Every favor granted feeds the expectation of the next. But when you draw a line with a no, at first there may be resistance, even anger. Yet over time, something else appears: respect. And this is where Stoicism comes in. Epictetus said that no one can force you to act against your will if you remember that the only thing under your control is your own decision. Your no, in that sense, is your greatest tool for freedom. Let's try a small exercise. Imagine a concrete situation where you usually say yes, even though inside you'd like to say no. Picture that person's face. Hear the request. Now respond calmly and firmly, "I can't do it." Feel the silence that follows. Breathe. That discomfort is temporary, but what you gain is lasting. The certainty that your life is not for sale. Let me give you a metaphor. Think of your no as a wall protecting a city. If every visitor could knock down a brick, sooner or later the city would be exposed and vulnerable. That wall isn't meant to imprison, but to protect what's valuable inside. The same happens with you. Your no isn't a wall of selfishness, but a healthy boundary that keeps your dignity standing. Someone might say, "But what's wrong with helping if it's family?" And of course, helping isn't wrong. The problem begins when helping means erasing yourself. That's no longer love, it's submission. And when you submit, You don't just lose, you also teach the other person that it's okay to take advantage. That's why every calm, firm no is also a silent lesson for others. I'll close this point with a reflection. If your voice trembles when you say no, remember you're not being harsh, you're being fair. And fairness, with yourself, will always be the first act of love. A well-placed no is a door that shuts against manipulation, but it's also the key that opens your freedom. Number 2, your peace of mind. Peace is not negotiable. And I don't say this as a pretty phrase for a fridge magnet. I say it because it's the invisible foundation that holds your whole life together. What good is physical health, relationships, or money if your mind won't rest, if your heart is in constant turmoil? The problem is that far too often, the world expects you to sacrifice that peace in the name of love, family, or duty. You're asked to listen to arguments that aren't yours, to carry guilt that doesn't belong to you, to solve conflicts born of other people's choices, and you, out of love or habit, accept. But every time you do, your peace bleeds away drop by drop. Think about this. The body has ways of warning you when something is wrong, like fever or pain. The mind does too. When you notice you can't sleep because you keep circling around the same problem, when you feel a knot in your stomach every time the phone rings with someone difficult on the other end, that's your alarm system. The sad thing is that many of us have learned to ignore those signals as if they were just minor annoyances, until one day the wear turns into anxiety, depression, or even physical illnesses rooted in stress. I once met a woman who, at 70, confessed through tears that she couldn't remember the last time she had gone a single day without worrying about her adult children. They lived their lives, made reckless choices, and then called her to clean up the mess. She couldn't say no because she believed that being a mother meant being permanently available. The result was chronic insomnia and a sick heart. The hardest part was when she told me, "I don't know who I am without their problems." That day, I understood the devastating cost of surrendering peace in the name of supposed unconditional love. Let me give you an image. Imagine your mind as a garden. There are flowers representing your nourishing thoughts, and weeds that are other people's worries sneaking in uninvited. If you water the weeds, soon the flowers suffocate. If you pull out what doesn't belong, the garden thrives. Your task is not to become everyone's gardener, but to be the faithful caretaker of your own inner space. Neuroscience has shown that chronic stress damages memory and ages the brain faster. But the good news is that calm can be trained. Something as simple as spending 5 minutes a day breathing deeply, listening attentively to your body, can break the spiral of intrusive thoughts. It's a small exercise, but its cumulative effect is enormous. It gives oxygen back to your mind and space back to your heart. Maybe you wonder, how do I explain this to others without them thinking I'm cold or distant? The key is short, firm sentences without over-justifying yourself. I can't take that on today. I need to rest. Let's talk tomorrow. You don't need to give a speech. Your peace doesn't require excuses. It only requires decision. I'll close with something I learned from Marcus Aurelius. Perfect tranquility consists in the order of the mind, and that order begins with you. If you give away your peace, you lose everything. If you protect it, even in the middle of chaos, you hold the most precious gift of all, the calm of knowing your inner world is in harmony. Number 3, your financial independence. Money doesn't buy happiness. We know that. But losing it carelessly can certainly buy you endless sleepless nights. After 60, your financial independence becomes a lifeline. It sustains your freedom, your health, and often your dignity. The problem is that those closest to you, children, siblings, even a partner, may see your pension, savings, or house as a resource available for their emergencies, whims, or even shady ventures. And this is where you must be alert. What you give away out of love in financial matters may be the very thing that condemns you to dependence tomorrow. I remember the case of a man I met a few years ago. He had co-signed a loan for a nephew's supposedly safe business. The nephew disappeared shortly after, leaving him with the full debt. The hardest part wasn't the money lost, but the sense of betrayal, the shame of not having known how to say no, That mistake cost him years of payments that stole his peace, and he confessed that what hurt most was having done it thinking he was helping. That's the point. When you put your own stability at risk, you're not helping. You're dragging two people onto the same sinking ship. Psychology has an interesting concept: affective bias. It's the tendency to make financial decisions with the heart instead of reason, especially when it comes to family or loved ones. This bias is dangerous because it makes us believe things like "they would never let me down" or "it'll just be this one time." But statistics and experience tell another story. Once you cross the line of giving your money without limits, the door stays open for them to ask again and again. I know guilt plays a strong role here. How can you deny help to a child who says, "If you don't support me, I'll sink"? But I want you to see it differently. Your obligation isn't to rescue someone from every fall, but to teach them to walk on their own. Protecting your money isn't selfish. It gives the other person the chance to grow. If you're always there with an open wallet, you rob them of the most important lesson: the responsibility of owning their choices. Here's something practical I suggest. Create what I call a dignity budget. It's a portion of your money that never gets touched, no matter what. That amount is reserved for you, for your medicine, your food, your home, your small joys. It's your shield against outside pressure. And if you ever decide to help, let it come from the surplus, never from what compromises your stability. This is also a good time to review important documents: will, powers of attorney, joint accounts. Don't leave loose ends. A well-prepared document today can save you a world of problems tomorrow. And when someone comes with a request that threatens your stability, remember this phrase: "I'd rather disappoint you than betray myself." That is self-love applied to money. And before closing this point, let me ask you, if this talk is opening your eyes, subscribe to the channel right now, give this video a like, and tell me in the comments what country you're watching from. I'd love to read your messages and see how far this community of wisdom seekers has reached. And tell me too, what financial boundary do you commit to respecting from today onward? Because the truth is simple. Your financial independence is the key that unlocks your freedom, and that key, once given away, may never return to your hands. Guard it like the treasure that sustains your independence. Number 4, your dignity and self-respect. There's something that, once lost, can never truly be regained: your dignity. You can earn money again, you can heal relationships, you can restart projects. But when you get used to giving up your worth, to letting others walk over you, little by little you erase the imprint of who you are. And the cruelest part is that often you don't even realize you're doing it. With a "well, it doesn't matter," with a silence that swallows words that should have been spoken, with a fake smile just to avoid making others uncomfortable. I've felt that myself. I remember a meeting where someone, in a mocking tone, made a comment that belittled me in front of everyone. The easy thing would have been to laugh along to avoid tension. But inside, something burned. Why should I accept being treated that way? I took a breath and calmly responded, clarifying my position without offending, but without lowering myself either. The silence in the room was awkward, yes, but that day I walked away with peace in my heart. I had chosen my dignity over others' approval, and that taught me that respect always begins with oneself. In daily life, small humiliations often hurt more than big conflicts. A sarcastic comment, a request disguised as a joke, a dismissive gesture. They seem minor, but they are cracks that, over time, break your self-esteem. The hard part is that when they come from family, we learn to normalize them. We tell ourselves, "That's just how he is. She always talks like that." But let me tell you something. Normalizing mistreatment, even the subtle kind, is the fastest way to lose your self-respect. Stoicism teaches that virtue lies in what depends on you, and your dignity depends entirely on you. No one can take it from you unless you hand it over. It's like an invisible cloak that covers you. If you hold onto it firmly, even when the wind blows hard, it stays in place. But if you drop it out of fear or complacency, no one will return it to you. Here's a simple practice. Before entering any difficult conversation, repeat to yourself a short phrase that reminds you of your worth. It could be, "My voice matters," or "I am worthy of respect." It's not about shouting it to the world, but engraving it in your mind. That phrase will act as an anchor when someone tries to belittle you. And let me ask you, how many times have you stayed silent out of fear of creating conflict? And how many of those times did you end up feeling smaller than you were? That is the price of misunderstood peace, an appearance of calm on the outside, but an inner war within you. True peace isn't bought with submission. It comes from the certainty that you remain faithful to who you are. I'll close this point with a deep conviction. Your dignity is not negotiable. Not for family, not for a partner, not for anyone. When you respect yourself, you teach others how to treat you. And that may be the most powerful lesson you can leave in this world, showing that true love never asks you to give up your worth. Number 5, your time and your energy. Time is the most democratic resource there is. We all have 24 hours a day, but the energy with which we use those hours is limited and unique. After 60, you realize it's not about filling the calendar, but about wisely choosing where to invest each minute and each drop of your vitality. The problem is that, too often, others act as if your time is available by default, as if being retired, separated, or with grown children meant you're just waiting around to attend their urgencies, accompany their dramas, or handle their errands. And you, out of love, end up saying yes until your day is completely drained. One metaphor I like is that of a bank account. Each morning you wake up with a certain amount of energy deposited. Every conversation, every favor, every activity is a withdrawal. Some things earn you interest, a peaceful walk, coffee with someone who listens, reading a good book. Others are fees you'll never get back. Unnecessary arguments, problems that aren't yours, imposed commitments. The key question is, do you want to end each day in the red? Not long ago, I met a 72-year-old woman who told me she always felt exhausted. She didn't understand why, since she no longer worked and her home was in order. As I listened, I discovered that she spent her days solving her 3 adult children's problems and constantly caring for her grandchildren. She didn't have time for a nap or even a quiet walk alone. When I asked what she did just for herself, she fell silent. That silence was the answer. Nothing. She had been giving away her time as if it had no value. Modern psychology talks about decision fatigue. When you spend your day making small decisions for others, by the end of the day you no longer have clarity or energy for yourself. And here, Stoic philosophy is a guide. Not everything placed before you deserves your immediate response. Epictetus would say that freedom begins when you learn to distinguish what is within your power and what is not. Here's a little experiment for you. For 7 days, write in a notebook every time you say yes to something you didn't actually want to do. At the end of the week, review that list. You'll be surprised at how much time you give away without noticing. That record is like a mirror. It shows you where your life is slipping away. Now, a practical recommendation: choose 3 blocks of your day that are untouchable. Maybe your mornings for walking, your afternoons for resting, or your evenings for reading. Make those moments your personal sanctuary. When someone tries to take them, answer calmly, "I can't at that time, but we can talk later." That simple phrase gives you back ownership of your schedule. Let me close this point with a direct reflection. Your time and your energy are the purest form of your life. Giving them away indiscriminately is like leaving a faucet running in the desert. The little you have is wasted without meaning. Guard your hours and your vitality for what they are, your most fragile and sacred treasure. Number 6, your sleep and your rest. Sleep is the secret workshop where your body and mind repair themselves every night. But tell me, how many times have you given it up to solve a problem that wasn't yours? How many nights have you stayed awake waiting for a child to come home, answering messages at dawn, or turning over someone else's worries in your head? You already know the result. You wake up exhausted, your mind is foggy, and the whole day becomes an uphill battle. Science confirms it. Poor sleep isn't just fatigue. It's a silent bomb that wears down your memory, your immune system, even your heart. I know people who, for years, normalized sleeping only 4 or 5 hours, believing it made them strong. But the bill always comes due. high blood pressure, anxiety, memory lapses that scare them, all because someone convinced them that being available at any hour was the same as showing love. Let me tell you about a neighbor of mine, a 75-year-old woman. She proudly said she never let her grandchildren cry at night, that she always got up to tend to them, even if the next day she was exhausted, until one day she fainted from lack of rest and ended up in the emergency room. That experience made her realize that by sacrificing her sleep, she wasn't really caring for anyone. She was weakening herself, and that was the opposite of helping. Stoicism teaches that we must honor the body as part of our responsibility. Marcus Aurelius put it clearly: the mind needs calm, and the body needs rest. Denying yourself rest is an act of neglect toward yourself. And after 60, every hour of sleep becomes medicine. I want to suggest you build your own nighttime ritual, not as a rigid rule, but as a gift to your peace. Dim the lights an hour before bed, put away the phone, listen to calming music, or say a short prayer. It's like setting the stage for sleep to arrive without interruptions. And if your mind insists on bringing up unfinished business, try a simple exercise. Write everything down on paper. Not to solve it, just to move it out of your head and into a safe place. That small gesture tells your mind, I don't need to keep spinning on this now. Here's an image to leave with you. Think of your sleep as a nightly charger. If every day you use your phone until it dies and never plug it in, what happens? It shuts off. You are no different. Each night you choose to sleep well is a recharge of energy, clarity, and life. Protect yourself from the toxic belief that rest is a luxury. Rest is your right, your medicine, and your duty to yourself. Because if you give away your sleep, you also give away your strength, your joy, and your health. And those are things no one should ever take from you. Number 7, your health and your medical decisions. Your health is yours, and your medical decisions are too. It seems obvious, but how many times has a family member spoken louder than you about a treatment, a medication, or even a surgery? As if, just because they've read more online or want what's best for you, your voice should be secondary. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If you give up that voice, you risk undergoing treatments you don't want, submitting to something you don't understand, or feeling like a prisoner in your own body. I've seen cases of older adults whose children switched their medications without consulting the doctor because they read it in an article. Others were persuaded into surgery even though their instincts told them they weren't ready. The result? Frustration, anger, and above all, the feeling that they were no longer in charge of their own lives. And believe me, that hurts more than the illness itself. Stoicism reminds us that while we can't control the length of our life, we can decide how we live it. Epictetus insisted that what's in our hands is our choice, and when it comes to health, your choice is sacred. I'm not only talking about medical treatments, but also the freedom to decide what kind of care you practice, what lifestyle you maintain, and what boundaries you set. Here's something very practical. Prepare a small notebook or folder with key information about your health. Include your diagnoses, your medications, your allergies, your preferences, and most importantly, make clear which treatments you accept and which you don't. This is called an advance directive, and though few people prepare one, it's a powerful tool to ensure your voice is heard even when you can't speak. I remember a conversation with a man who had written, "If I ever lose consciousness, I don't want invasive treatments that prolong my pain." When that time came, his family resisted following his wishes, but his decision was in writing. And thanks to that, he was able to leave with dignity, without family battles or guilt left behind. Now, this doesn't mean closing yourself off to dialogue. On the contrary, listen to your doctors, ask questions, seek second opinions, and talk with your family, but always from the clarity that the final word is yours. Your body is not a battlefield for debate, it is your sacred home. I'll close with this reflection. Every time you say yes to a treatment you understand and truly accept, you are choosing from freedom. Every time you say no to something you don't want, you are reaffirming your dignity. There are no small decisions when it comes to your health, because each one shapes the way you live your days. And no one, not even your dearest family, has the right to take that away from you. Number 8, your home and your space. Your house is not just walls and a roof, it's your sanctuary. It's the place where you breathe, where you rest, where you think, and often where you heal. Yet it's common for family or others to treat it as open ground, a place they can enter, rearrange, decide over, or even move into without asking permission. They excuse it with trust. It's just for a few days. You don't mind, do you? You've got plenty of space. And before you realize it, your living room is no longer yours. Your bed is shared with someone else's boxes, and your routine has been invaded. I recently spoke with a 70-year-old woman who told me, half laughing, half weary, that her house had turned into a kind of storage unit. Her children and grandchildren left there whatever didn't fit in their own homes. At first, she saw it as a gesture of help, until one morning she realized she no longer had space to sit in her own chair. What hurt most wasn't the boxes, it was feeling displaced in her own temple. Stoicism teaches that we must care for what depends on us, and your home depends on you. You can't control if your children run out of space, but you can decide whether or not your house becomes their warehouse. Your home is the physical reflection of your inner boundary. If you allow invasions here, you'll also allow them in your peace and your dignity. I want you to think of your house as a monastery. What happens when someone enters a monastery? They respect the rules, lower their voice, adapt to the atmosphere. Why shouldn't it be the same with you? When someone enters your home, they need to understand they're stepping into a sacred place with rules, schedules, and limits. That isn't harsh or selfish. It's honoring the value of your living space. A practical way to start is by creating a house rules kit. Simple, clear guidelines. For example, which rooms are private, what times you're available for visits, how long someone can stay. You don't need to be a drill sergeant, just clear and consistent. When the rules are on the table, you prevent resentment later. And yes, a little humor fits here. Can you imagine opening your door one day only to find your couch already claimed, your plates being used like a restaurant's, and your fridge like a community pantry? You don't need to wait for things to reach that extreme to react. It's better to set boundaries early, with warmth and firmness. Let me close with a simple image. Your house is like your body. You allow in those who care and respect, but not those who dirty or harm. Every corner of your home reflects your inner peace. And when you defend your space, you're not only protecting walls and furniture, you're protecting your soul from the invasion that drains your tranquility. Number 9, your healthy relationships, zero abuse. Love should never hurt, yet sometimes we confuse it with tolerating the intolerable. And the saddest part is that abuse doesn't always come in the form of blows or shouting. Often it slips in disguised as irony, heavy jokes, or favors that later come with emotional interest. Sound familiar? That comment that makes you feel small, that silence that punishes you, that look that makes you doubt yourself. That too is abuse, even if they tell you you're exaggerating. I've accompanied people who, after 60, carried on with family or partner relationships full of small, invisible aggressions. And they would say to me, "At my age, why bother changing things? Better to endure." But that enduring came at a price. Broken self-esteem, constant sadness, the sense of being just another piece of furniture in the house. And I want to say this clearly. No age justifies resigning yourself to bonds that wound you. Stoicism teaches that the only thing you can control is your own decisions. You can't force someone else to treat you with respect, but you can choose not to expose yourself again and again to the same wound. Epictetus put it bluntly, "He who suffers harm is the one who accepts it." That doesn't mean it's your fault if someone mistreats you. It means you have the option to create distance and to refuse to let that person continue holding power over you. Let me tell you a short story. There was once a boatman in a village who lent his canoe to all the neighbors. At first he did it gladly, until one day, when he wanted to use it himself, he couldn't find it. One had left it broken, another had taken it downstream, another had forgotten it tied on the opposite shore. A wise man told him, "Your mistake wasn't lending the canoe, it was not setting conditions." The boatman learned to say, "Yes, I'll lend it, but you return it tomorrow at my dock." In this way, he recovered not only his canoe, but his peace of mind. The same happens with your relationships. If you don't set rules, others use you and leave you adrift. Here's an exercise I propose. Make a list of your closest relationships. Next to each name, write whether that person adds to your energy or drains it. Don't sugarcoat it. Be honest. Then decide where you need to set a boundary, where you can give more, and from whom you may need to distance yourself, even if it hurts. That emotional map becomes a very clear mirror of which bonds deserve your time and which ones are draining your peace. And if you're wondering how to set limits without burning bridges, here are short phrases that work. That doesn't do me good. I'd rather not talk about that. If we continue in that tone, I'll leave. You don't need to shout or justify yourself. Firmness shows in the serenity with which you speak. I'll close this point with a conviction I want you to engrave. True love never makes you feel less. If you have to lose your dignity to keep a relationship, it's not love, it's dependence. And at this stage of your life, what you deserve isn't to endure, but to surround yourself with bonds that nourish you, respect you, and remind you every day that you are worth far more than you were ever led to believe. Number 10. Your current life project. There's a dangerous idea that often takes root after 60, believing your story is already written, that all that's left is to wait. But let me tell you firmly, as long as you breathe, there are chapters only you can write. Your life project didn't end with retirement, or when your children left home, or after a separation. On the contrary, this is the moment to redraw your map and decide where you want to go. The truth is, family, often with good intentions, may see you only as support, as a caregiver, as a useful resource for their needs. And in that role, little by little, you forget yourself. But the truth is, no one can give you purpose. You have to build it yourself, from what excites you, from what still makes your heart beat faster. A few years ago, I met a 68-year-old woman who, after retiring, opened a small pottery workshop. Her children thought it was a waste of time until they saw how she regained her joy, made new friends, and even sold some pieces. One day she told me, "I didn't do it for money. I did it because I needed to feel I could still create something beautiful with my hands." That sentence stayed with me. Her project not only brought back her enthusiasm, it also taught her family to see her as a fulfilled woman, not just a shadow always available. Japanese philosophy has a concept called ikigai, which means reason for being. You don't need grand plans to find yours. It's enough to look at what you enjoy, what you know how to do, what benefits others, and what gives you peace. Even now, you can design a personal ikigai, maybe painting, learning a language, writing memoirs, volunteering, or giving talks in your community. What matters is not doing it out of obligation, but out of conviction. Here's an exercise for you. Write down 3 things you always wanted to do, but never dared to. It doesn't matter if they seem small or unproductive, then choose one and take the first step. If you wanted to dance, find a class. If you wanted to write, start with a single page. If you wanted to travel, plan even a short outing nearby. Don't underestimate the power of micro-steps. They are the bricks with which you build your new life project. Now let me ask you, what would you rather be remembered for in 20 years? That you were always available to solve other people's problems, or that at your age you still dared to live with enthusiasm? The answer is obvious. When you live your project, you inspire more than when you sacrifice yourself. I'll close this point with a clear idea. Your life is not reduced to what you've already given. You still have a present to write and a future to discover. You are not a resource. You are a creator of meaning. And your current project, no matter how small it may seem, is proof that your story is still alive, vibrant, and worthy. Number 11. Your privacy and your data. Today, privacy isn't just about closing the door to your bedroom. It's also about closing the digital and emotional doors of your life. After 60, it's common for family to ask for your passwords to help you, to demand you show your conversations out of trust, or to pressure you into signing papers because it's easier that way. And often, out of affection or to avoid conflict, you give in. But every time you surrender your privacy without limits, you hand over a piece of your autonomy. I remember an older man who told me with a weary voice, how he had shared his bank passwords with a nephew who was managing his accounts. At first, everything seemed fine, until he began noticing suspicious transactions. The nephew said they were small expenses he'd replace later, but he never did. The man felt ashamed to speak up, because he thought distrusting family was bad manners. In the end, he lost not only money, but also his confidence in himself. And the most painful part was realizing he had placed in someone else's hands what he should have protected firmly. Psychology describes the right to privacy as a pillar of well-being. When you feel you have no personal space, physical or digital, you live in a constant state of hypervigilance that wears down your mind. You feel exposed, without refuge. And interestingly, the moment you reclaim privacy, relief comes instantly, like returning to inhabit your own body. Here's a simple practice I suggest. Create what I call an emotional and digital safe. Digitally, it means having passwords only you know, a personal email account, a folder where you keep important documents securely. Emotionally, it means holding on to conversations and thoughts that you don't need to share with anyone unless you want to. That space is yours, and no one has the right to demand it. Sometimes family pressure comes disguised as affection. Let me see your phone, I'll help you. Sign here, it's quicker. Give me access, I'll take care of it. Learn to respond with short, calm phrases without over-explaining, I'd rather handle it myself. Thanks, but I've got this under control. You don't owe long justifications. Your privacy doesn't require permission. I also encourage you to take one step further. Calmly review your legal documents. A clear will, well-defined powers of attorney, advanced directives, these aren't just paperwork. They're shields that protect your will and your dignity. By keeping them up to date, you prevent others from making decisions for you when you can't. Think of it this way. If your home had all its doors wide open, anyone could walk in and out as they pleased. Your privacy works the same. It's not about distrusting everyone, but about recognizing that your life has private rooms where only you decide who enters. Let me close with this image. Your privacy is a secret garden. It doesn't matter if you have a whole forest of relationships. You will always need one corner that is yours alone, where no one enters without permission. And defending that corner is an act of self-love you must never give away. Number 12. Your spirituality and your values. Your spirituality and your values are like a lighthouse in the middle of a storm. No matter how strong the winds of life blow, if you hold them firm, you'll always know where to go. But too often family, friends, or society itself try to impose their beliefs, their practices, or even ridicule what you hold sacred. And the real danger is that if you get used to giving in on this ground, you end up living by someone else's faith and ethics, while your own wither in silence. I've seen women who stop praying because their children told them that's old-fashioned. I've seen men who abandon spiritual readings because someone close mocked them. And the saddest part is that, in losing those practices, they didn't just give up a habit. They gave up their root of calm, that deep connection that gave meaning to their darkest days. Stoicism and the Bible agree on something essential. Protecting the heart is life's greatest task. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." I read that verse years ago, in a moment of confusion, and it helped me understand that what is most intimate and valuable must never be surrendered or negotiated. Your values, your faith, your vision of life, these are what hold your spirit when everything else shakes. Here's something concrete. Dedicate a few minutes each day to reviewing whether you lived in coherence with your values, not with guilt, but with honesty. Ask yourself, was I faithful to what I believe? Did I respect myself? Did I act according to my ethics? That brief nightly check-in restores clarity and keeps your days from slipping by without meaning. You can also create your own simple rituals. It could be a prayer upon waking, a mindful walk in gratitude, a moment of silence before bed, or even writing down 3 things you're thankful for. You don't need grand temples, because you are your own temple. Here's a metaphor. Imagine there's a lamp lit within you. If you allow others to blow on it with criticism or impositions, the flame may go out. But if you care for it with small daily gestures, that lamp not only lights your path, it also lights the path of those around you. And here's the most beautiful part. When you protect your spirituality and your values, you don't become selfish. You become an example. You show others that true faith, true ethics, aren't shouted or imposed. They are lived quietly, firmly, and with love. I'll close with this thought. Your peace, your dignity, and your purpose rest on that spiritual root and those values that define you. Never give them away, because in them lies your true strength. And by protecting them, you light up not only your own life, but also the lives of those who love you. Today we've walked through a deep and maybe uncomfortable path, but one that's absolutely necessary. We talked about the 12 things you must never give away for anyone. Your no, your peace of mind, your financial independence, your dignity, your time and energy, your rest, your health and medical decisions, your home and space, your healthy relationships, your life project, your privacy and data, and finally, your spirituality and values. 12 pillars that, if you protect them, not only hold you up, but also teach others, through your example, that true love never asks you to give up what's essential. I want to thank you from the heart for staying with me until the end. I know it's not easy to face these truths, because each one touches sensitive places, family, guilt, fears. But I also know that if you're here, it's because there's a voice inside you that longs for more peace, more dignity, more inner freedom. That voice deserves to be heard, and you've just given it space. My name is Gabriel, and this is the Stoic Garden. This channel exists to walk with you as you live with wisdom, with self-love, and with courage, even when the world tells you otherwise. Here we don't seek perfection, we seek truth. And on that path, you are a vital part of this community. I want to ask you for something simple yet powerful. Write in the comments what country you're watching from, so we can see how far this community of wisdom seekers has reached. And also, leave this phrase to seal what we've learned today. My peace is not negotiable. That will be your public declaration that you're ready to set boundaries and protect what is yours. Share this video with someone you love, a friend, a sister, a neighbor. You never know when these words might be the breath of relief someone was waiting for. And thank you again for staying until the end, for your time, your attention, your trust. Now, on your screen, you'll see 2 more videos you may find interesting. Pick one and continue this journey of reflection, practical philosophy, and transformation. Because the road to your peace and dignity is just beginning, and we're walking it together.